My apologies. I may have done a poor job in conveying that last message. It tends to happen when I don't write my thoughts down. But the purpose of me expressing those thoughts as it pertains to poverty's effect on intellectual growth in our communities was to illustrate how deeply rooted some of these life experiences are. I use my own experience to bring awareness to this because I remember what my thought process was. I remember my response to every hardship, and more importantly, I remember what it felt like to be in that position. It hits different when it's a lived experience rather than an observation. This is what advocacy, using your voice and platform to speak on issues that affect others, looks like. These experiences shape people in one way or the other, and that cannot be ignored. We all have origin stories that explain why we display the traits that we sometimes unknowingly display. It's why I mentioned at the end of the video that it all starts at home. What we experience as children matters. It's forever a part of our makeup. Let me put it like this. If you have a generous portion of ground beef in a bowl, and you season that ground beef with seasoned salt and pepper, a little minced garlic, some onion powder, you chop up some onions and green peppers, toss them in a bowl, you crack an egg in that bowl, you crumble up some Ritz-style crackers over the top and you mix it all up. In that bowl, you have the base ingredients for a damn good meatloaf. After you form it into shape and bake it for an hour, you should expect the results to be just that. Not baked chicken, not green bean casserole, and for damn sure, not yellow cake. Sure, you could take that mixture and you could, spread it evenly in a cake pan. And when it's done, you could cover the top with chocolate frosting. I wouldn't recommend you do it, but to each his own. But even having the same appearance won't make it yellow cake. Humans are very much the same way. What's poured into us early in life, the direction we're given, the experiences we have, the circumstances we come up under, the environments we grow up in, that determines a lot of what we become later. Things like respect and discipline and integrity and manners and work ethic, those are ingredients. Unfortunately, abuse, abandonment, neglect are ingredients also. Wasn't there just something on social media where people were flinching at their kids to see their reactions? What was that about? Healthy children are created by healthy circumstances. Healthy is not to be confused with perfect or only having good traits. Healthy being in the form of understanding one's traits, being able to differentiate between quality and poor traits, expressing the quality, suppressing the poor in an effort to mitigate what is passed down. The same way many of us have a drawer or cabinet full of spices, but we only pull out certain spices for the meatloaf. Now, if you were determined enough, you could remove every piece of bell pepper and chopped onion out of that mixture. It'd be a dreadfully tedious process. But there is nothing you could do about those cracker crumbs, that egg yolk, and those seasonings. They are inseparable from that mixture. Well, there are some things that people could do to rid themselves of certain negative traits also, traits like laziness. But there are traumas that people have been through that will stick with them for the everts. And they'll show signs of that trauma for as long as they live. But just because you can't rid yourself of certain negative experiences doesn't mean that you're subjected to living with the negative effects of those experiences forever. Every good cook knows that if you're a bit heavy-handed on the salt, you just add a little more pepper, maybe some other spices, but you add other ingredients to offset the excess of salt. You have to add more tools to your bag to offset the negative traits that you gained from that experience. For example, let's say a child was bullied, beaten and bloodied at school. That child will never forget that experience or the associated traumas. The embarrassment of knowing the entire school saw what happened. The helplessness of knowing there was nothing they could do in that moment to defend themselves. The hopelessness of knowing that not enough will be done by the school or that other child's parents to prevent them from attacking again. The mixture of insecurity and paranoia that comes from knowing that others may see you as an easy mark now. Those emotions will hurt more than the physical wound that bleeds and scabs, and they'll be more noticeable than the scar that is left when the wound heals and the skin smooths. These emotions cannot exit that child on command. They only exit after things have been added to the child to offset the negative effects of that experience. They exit when the child has grown and gained more strength, when they have trained in self-defense or combat sports, when they have competed enough to be confident in their abilities to defend themselves. But they'll never forget the feelings associated with being bullied. They'll just move on throughout life knowing that they are now capable of dealing with bullies. We offset the negative effects of poverty by making additions to ourselves. whether that's furthering our educations, diversifying our skill sets, or experiencing new things. And it's important that we add as much as we can to ourselves, because then it adds to what we pour out. It all starts at home because whether we know it or not, we're always pouring. And children at a young age are always drinking from or bathing and soaking in the contents. Although I do not know this man personally, I can say with 100% certainty that Brother Shatelko's great-grandsons will be highly educated men, if nothing else. His parents saw to it that he was enriched through education by reading and experiencing different things and places. He has undoubtedly carried on the family tradition. That recipe for success has been served in generous portions, evident by sons who are engineers. By the time his great-grandsons are adults, their children will feel like they're standing under a waterfall with the amount of knowledge being poured onto them. I have no doubt about this. But the contents and the containers from which they were consumed from were much different in the Gatewood Walker household. Nah, education wasn't pushed on us at all, evident by 5 children and not an associate's degree amongst us. Our Kool-Aid jug was full of gangster shit because of my stepfather and the neighborhood we grew up in. We bathed in hard work and hustle because of the continuous knocks at the door and the fact that our mother worked a full-time job, then did somebody's hair or cleaned someone's home on her off days. This should help explain why I'm at the test site Monday through Thursday, on a tour bus Friday through Sunday, driving Lyft on any of the days I'm not doing one of the two, and then recording videos on top of all of that. My 18-year-old daughter's first tattoo wasn't a butterfly. It was a message to herself, something to the effect of, you get what you work for, not what you wish for. That shows you what's being passed down amongst the Gatewoods. I can never remember a time where my mother was unemployed. To this day, she'll register a table at a pop-up and go sell handmade jewelry. But when I walked in that house, absolutely drenched, it wasn't because I got caught in that summer monsoon. No, that wasn't water dripping on that floor. That was determination that I was tracking all over that tile. We stayed in so many different places. I went to so many different schools because my mother started over so many times. Every time she get knocked down, right back up. Energizer Bunny just kept going. That showed me that when something does not go my way in life, when I get knocked down, pull myself up by them bootstraps and keep pushing. But I made it here by standing on principles like a man. Same way you gotta stand on principles in those streets. By busting my ass to provide. By prioritizing my family and community. And by running through any motherfucking obstacle that stood in my way. I was never afraid to get knocked down because I was never afraid to start over. But I didn't escape poverty because of my intellectual prowess. Thankfully, those other traits were good enough to get me to a place where my intellect can kick in and get me to the next level, because I still have so much room for growth. And to know me is to know that I'm taking every bit of that space. What they say on Friday After Next, it's small in here. No, I'm big in here. But I make no apologies for who I am. I'm not responsible for the ingredients. Besides, who can I be better than myself? I hope this clarifies the purpose and importance of that message.